I love the fact I'm known as this guy. I eat it up. I'm not gonna lie. I fucking eat it up. I do. Because it's like, I'll go to Gen Con, I'll go to conventions, and people are like, it's the Dungeon Master Therapy guy. I'm like, it's me. You want a photograph? You want a signature? And they're like, yeah. However, I'm the Dungeon Master Therapy guy, so it's like expected. There's days where I'm just like, I don't want to make a fucking Dungeon Master Therapy video today because I've made 7 in the past 4 days.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Geek Peek. Today I'm talking with Brendan the DM. Brendan is an amazing person. I had so much fun talking to him. He's also a huge nerd and we have a lot in common. And we had a fantastic chat about how he became who he is today. So without further ado, enjoy the interview. Brendan the DM, thank you so much for joining me. I have been such a fan of yours since the pandemic. I discovered you, but doing homework for this conversation, I realized that you created content a long time before the pandemic. So I want to take you back to even before that. I usually want to know what life was like before you started creating content. So can you share a little bit about who you were before Brendan the DM?
Yeah. Oh, I could do like an entire genogram on like my life story and history right now. Before I was, I guess, Brandon the DM, I guess I was still kind of, I don't know. That's a weird question because, like, I guess Brennan the DM was created when I was like 8 or 9 on a technical basis because that's when I started DMing. I was like 8, 9 years old when I got into D&D and stuff. So I've been in it, like, into the game and the hobby and like tabletop role playing games for that long. So over 20 years, which is insane to think about. So more than half my life. However, I wasn't always doing like content and everything. I never went by Brandon the DM until the past couple years. So. I don't know. I was a big high school, I guess, like football guy. I was big into football when I was in school. Played all through middle school and high school. Super into sports and everything. But I was also that like really nerdy kid that played all the sports. So instead of going to the parties Friday after our games, I'd go play like Magic: The Gathering at like our friend's basement instead after a game and stuff. So that was like kind of like me, my personality and stuff when I was in school. Came from a very, very weird situation growing up with my parents and everything, and not exactly the most stable or healthy environment, I guess you could put it that way. So like things like D&D and tabletop gaming was like my escape from all that, which is why I think I latched onto it so hard. And yeah, I went to school college for psychology, and I do behavioral therapy, or therapeutic behavioral support. For a day job. Basically, I run Dungeons and Dragons groups for kids, and I work in a school helping with, school kids and school staff and everything. That's what I've been doing for almost a decade now, actually, which is kind of wild to think about. Oh my God. Like it's hard to go back and think of like things I did that weren't content related or D&D related because I'm doing it for so long. Wow. Oh, fun fact. I used to play in a band. I did the music thing for a while too. That was fun. When I was in college, when I started college, I needed like a side hobby. That was like, I don't know. I've always liked performing and like doing things in front of an audience and, those sorts of nature of things. So I actually joined a couple bands when I was in college and a little after college. So I did the whole like local music, rock band, pop punk thing. So that was a blast too. I've done a lot of stuff. But like D&D at the end of it has always been kind of like something I've latched onto ever since I was a little kid. And the main reason that was because when I was about 8 or 9, my parents went through a really, really bad divorce. And to get me out of the house, my friend of mine, his name was Jake. This is back in like elementary school. His dad played D&D, and they invited me over to the house to play with them. And I fell in love with it immediately. And then we got 3 sessions in. And then we moved. So I got to play 3 times, and then we moved because of the divorce and everything. And I was very sad. My grandma bought me the D&D core books for, I think, 3rd edition or 3.5. I think it was 3.5, actually. And when I was like 9 years old, I just started writing stories and just coming up with concepts for campaigns. And all this stuff and didn't have anybody at all to even play with. Like I just had all these books and all the material and nobody to play with up until like middle school. So when I finally hit like middle school at a different school and started making friends, you know, we were like hanging out. I'm like, yo, I want to play D&D. They're just like, what's that? And I'm like, I'm going to show you. Don't you worry. I got plenty of material. And I became like my friend group's DM all through middle school, high school, and college. So like I was Brandon. I was the DM, you know, for that long for everything and everybody. Going through middle school, you know, I was pretty well simplistic kid. I tried to keep myself out of the house the most I could with everything that was going on, whether it was working odd jobs for friends, like working on a farm, or, you know, playing football or working out. Those were the big ones. Obviously playing things like D&D and Magic and doing video games on the side with friends, just staying out of the house. High school, same thing, kept it straight and narrow, was working, playing football, playing D&D, doing Magic. College, same thing, but then I threw music into the mix too, because again, my environment wasn't exactly the healthiest, so I was doing everything I possibly could to keep myself just away from everything that was going on. So that's why I latched onto music, because I was constantly just never home, which was what I needed. Eventually, I met my wife in 2016. Technically, 2016 is when we started. No, 2017 is when we started dating, and we've been together since then. We've been married for like 5 years now. And now I'm here. Started making content, I want to say in 2014, 2015, I think is when I started making content, kind of like delving into it and trying. And it wasn't probably until like 2019, 2020 when things started to click. So. Yeah.
Wow. That's a
kind
long
of a lot.
history.
It's like a mixed bag of things. That's why I was like really I kind of went off for a second there, because I'm just like, how do I not put D&D or like content into this? But I'm just like, oh my God, I've been playing since I was 8 years old. It's hard not to.
I wrote a few things that I want to dive into as you were speaking. But before we do that, I do actually want to ask you, because you played D&D so long, what's one of your favorite stories that you told with your friends?
Oh, it's so hard. I remember when I think it was college. Yeah. We had a campaign going on in college, and it was a blast. And I remember that, I don't know, it was like all my high school friends, and we like had stuck together like all through like high school and everything. We even played in college and everything. And I don't remember all the campaign details to like, you know, full detail, but I do remember like just like key moments and core memories from that campaign of like ridiculous things that would happen. So it's really hard to like think of like one thing from that campaign that's like, this stuck out to me. But I mean, there was things like, I don't know, the party ended up accidentally working for a brothel just so they could get information about the mayor. And it was such a weird like thing that happened, because they were just like, oh yeah, we walk into this bar. They weren't paying attention to what it was. They just walked into the building. I gave them the name of the building. I'm like, it's called this. And they're just like, sure, we'll go in. And I'm like, when you guys walk in, you see that there are a bunch of people, men and women, that are dressed very seductively, that are walking around asking if you would like a drink or anything. They're just like, this is normal. And like 5 minutes in, they quickly learn like, oh, this is a brothel / like, you know, kind of like strip club type scenario going on here. They ended up working for it and then owning it and managing it just to get information about the town's mayor, because he had committed some sort of like really, really petty crime. Like nothing even I forget what it was. It was like he forgot to fulfill a promise to a family because he was so busy with something, which caused the family to be like, I don't know, behind financially. It was there as a very petty crime. It was like a level 3 quest where it was just like something super simple, but they went through such a ludicrous method of finding out the information they needed. And it took like 4 sessions instead of just like 30 minutes like it should have, because they went through this entire arc of, oh yeah, let's go to this strip club / brothel. Let's get some drinks. Let's work here so we can get information. Oh, let's own it. And I'm like, cool.
Own
like,
it.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. I forget how it happened, but they became the owners. They got the deed to the place. Eventually they got the information, and then they quit, and the place had no management. They just left. They just didn't come back. then continued on with the quest. It was so stupid. So like stuff like that really sticks with me because it's just like, what even? This didn't go how it was supposed to go. So that was a fun one.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I have like I relate to what they did, like owning the place, because one of the things I love doing in video games is like becoming. This is going to sound like petty, but I like to kind of manage properties. Like, for example, Anno 1800 is one of my favorite games. Like it's a city builder. And also in other games, like, for example, Pathfinder Kingmaker or another Pathfinder game, Wrath of the Righteous, they let you manage a crusade or they let you manage a kingdom. So those are very cool things that you can do. And I relate to what they did because they kind of forced you to be their manager in terms of like, okay, this needs to get done in the property.
Yeah, there was like an entire arc of like, cool, you need to schedule your employees for what days they're doing this. Oh, you guys are out of booze. You need to figure out where they usually get their booze from which distillery on the neighboring village, and that's where they get it from. You got to have somebody go there and manage all that. It was an entire like 3-session arc of them just like managing like what was the equivalent of like a fantasy strip club, just for the sake of it, just so they could get information about the mayor who committed a very petty crime for like a starter campaign mission. Yeah.
Did they at least get passive income from that?
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they were set. Yeah. Like remember, it was only for like 3 days. Like they became like this all happened in game maybe like 4 or 5 days is like when this happened. Basically they convinced the owner that was owning the tavern that like, hey, you're old, you can retire, we'll take it over. And he was just like, oh, okay, that's fine, sure, I'll take my retirement and I'll go. Here, you guys want to own the place? And they were like, sure. And I'm just like, I didn't expect them to say yes. So that's what happened. But as soon as they cashed out a little bit after a few days of like owning it, they got the information they needed and they just left and never looked back. So
wow,
dumb.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned in one of your previous points that you were in a band. And I don't like watching your videos. I do see like me as a viewer, I feel that you have a good taste in music because of all the background music that you put in your videos. Mm-hmm. They like flow right into the action. Like they feel like they match. But can you explain, like, can you share a bit about how was it to be in a band? What kind of experience do you think it's taught you going forward?
Initially, I joined a band, and I'll be 100% honest. I was like 19, 20, maybe like 20, 19, 20 when I joined first band. I initially did it to like impress a girl. That was, first of all, that was why. And it ended up going down a whole like line of just like, years of doing music all through college. But it was interesting because I didn't know anything about music, actually. I didn't know how to play guitar. I didn't know how to play drums. I didn't know how to sing. So I went out and I bought a bass guitar. So I had an acoustic guitar and I had a bass guitar. Taught myself how to play both. Tried out for a band 2 months later. I was absolutely horrible, but they liked my enthusiasm, and I was very good at like the marketing end of things, like selling tickets and outreach and all that kind of stuff. So they were like, "Yeah, you kind of suck at bass and guitar because you just started playing, but you're really good at talking to people and like getting us shows." So, yeah, you could stay on. And then I did, and we became like really good friends for years. And I eventually did get better at playing, both instruments because as I practiced, it got a lot better. And it wasn't like I needed to like be a professional or anything because we were playing like pop punk music or like, typical punk music. And that's just what it was. And it was fun.
Were you a guitarist? Did you play guitar?
Yeah, I played bass in one band. I played guitar in another band.
Okay, so you mentioned another fun thing before, that what you do for a day job is DMing for kids.
Yeah.
So is that something like that you can expand on? It sounds super interesting, and I envy you
So
very
I
much.
do basically. So I went to school. I'll start from the beginning. Actually, I went to college for psychology. Not knowing that was probably not the best idea in my book, because there's not a lot you can do with a psych degree anymore, which is kind of rough. There's stuff you can do, but it's not as open as like other degrees of like what if I would have went for like social work or something else I can get like a licensure in. But I went anyways because I was like, I'm gonna get a college degree and I'm gonna do big things with my college degree because look at me. I eventually did get a job out of college, like immediately afterwards, working for a mental health company. Doing the same thing that I do now, which is essentially what is called therapeutic behavior support for kids. It's like a service that kind of coincides with therapy. So like there's a therapist, and then there's like somebody like me that'll do like therapeutic behavior interventions or like work on social skills and that kind of stuff. So my big thing with kids and like teenagers is definitely like the social skills aspect and like peer interaction and like group interaction, that kind of stuff, while they also work with an individual therapist on the side. So I started doing the D&D groups maybe like a year or two into the field, doing stuff like that for different like, groups of kids. And then I took a break from it for a little bit because I was changing companies around because I was exploring the field and all that. But recently, over the past year, the company I've been working at, I started a new program, because I went in and the position was pretty much like, hey, this is what your job is. However, this end of things, if you want to kind of like figure out something else you want to do, like a program you want to make, then you definitely can. And I'm like, cool. I want to do this. I want to do D&D for kids, like make a legitimate like D&D program where I have like a caseload of kids that they come in on these days, blah, 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 and they play D&D, and these are the benefits, and this is why it's good for kids socially and behaviorally and everything. So I wrote up an entire kind of like spreadsheet of like, these are the types of interventions. This is how I'm going to run it to make it therapeutic. This is how I'm going to run it to make it, ethical, etc. And it ended up becoming one of our highest referred programs, like in a while for like that summer. Like people were like all over it and wanting to be aboard of it really bad, to the point where I had to like not turn people away, but put them on a waiting list of like, hey, I'm overwhelmed right now. I can only do this 3 nights a week, and I'm not taking more than 5 or 6 kids, because running D&D for any more than 5 kids, it's a lot to do. So I've been doing it for off and on for a couple of years, but it is something I was going to expand on initially, like get my master's degree and, continue to pursue to like do on a more professional level too, and kind of like make that my main focus of things, which that's still like in my pocket of things that I'd like to try to do. I was going to go for my master's degree starting in like January, but I'm pushing that off a little bit longer, only because like life has been kind of chaotic for a while now. I've told you like, I've got so much going on right now. Like I barely have time to breathe. So like eventually down the road, I'd like to get my master's and, hopefully expand upon it and, kind of make them more, not that it's not professional now, but also like get like my individual licensure behind it. And, like do some books around like using ttrpgs and stuff for kids and etc. So that's how I kind of like to expand upon it. I'm not rushing to kind of do it. Initially, I was just like gung-ho, like, oh yeah, I love this. Let me rush into this. But I have so much going on with life right now that it's better for me to kind of like take my time with it, continue to build everything, figure out how I want to do it, what exactly I want to do, and continue to expand from there.
So the question that must be asked is, what kind of stories do you tell these children? Like,
yeah, honestly, so what I do, since it is supposed to be like a behavioral like intervention group for kids, I come up with goals for each of them, like things they would like to accomplish, but like both inside the game and outside the game, to kind of like collaborate with kind of like their therapist and everything. And each of the kids gives me like the goals and things they feel like they need to work on, and then I'll work with like their therapist, say like, hey, what would you like to see so and so improve on? And I take that and I implement it into their characters. And honestly, I really just tell like a various, just standard high fantasy story, but I just put elements of like what their characters or them as a person need to kind of implement it into the story. So sometimes the kids don't even know it's like therapeutic until like they sit back and realize like, oh my God, it's that thing I'm afraid of. Or, oh my God, I didn't think I had the confidence to do this thing. because I make it like very subtle. Because if I were to sit here and like force them into like, doing stuff like you're doing this for these reasons because you need to work on this, they're gonna be less prone to feeling like they're having fun. Whereas like if I let it come naturally to them, then they realize like a month in, like, oh my God, I'm much more confident now. Like I have one of my groups that they've been doing it for about 6 months with me now. They started like hanging out outside of their group. Like a lot of them didn't know each other going into this, and now like they've got group chats together, Discord together, they're hanging out, they're doing all this stuff, and like the entire goal of the program was that these kids can socialize, make friends, and learn to interact with each other. And like it worked. These kids are literally like they built connections and friendships with each other, and now they're hanging out outside of this. And when their group ends, which is going too soon because it's a 6-month program, they want to keep playing together. Like, so I'm like, this worked. This did the thing it was supposed to do. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That feels like the same vibe of The Never-Ending Story. If you ever read the book.
I have, people are going to hate me for this, but I have not. I've never read the book. I've never seen the movie either.
I think I've seen only one of them. I heard they're not like the best movies ever, so okay, we're fine. But the book, it's like the end is like when the kid comes back to our reality, is like much more confident after he has been inside the world of the Never-Ending Story. Mm-hmm. So that feels like so connected. Like they experience with you this alternate reality, and then it affects their life. It's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, and that's really what I was going for with it. And like I said, this campaign I tell for them, it's very much it's a standard high fantasy campaign because I am running 3 groups a week, with different kids. Wow. So I can't do a lot of like intricate, like super detailed writing. I do keep it very basic of just like, oh, you're in a town. Oh, the police are corrupted. You got to go stop, or not the police, the guards. The guards are corrupted. You got to go stop them because they're getting paid by this bandit group and organization to keep them safe. Like just stuff like that. Like, oh, oopsie doopsies. There's a group of kobolds that are in the mountain that are hoarding a bunch of gold for the dragon god. You got to go stop them. Just very, very basic stuff, very cliche, typical things that you'd find in the high fantasy game. But because I can take individual things for each person and just like sprinkle it in, it makes them feel like it's like very unique to them. And it's really created like a really healthy environment for these kids. So
sounds like a lot of work to weave like individual things for each kid.
Yeah, it is. It 100% is. Because it is supposed to be a beneficial group to like their mental health and like social, like, interactions with peers. I have to have a little bit of it individualized, for, ethical reasons. So like make it like, yes, they're here for a reason. Like this person is here to work on this and it's working for these reasons. So, it does become a lot. It does become a little overwhelming, honestly, at some days because I'm doing it 3 nights a week, on top of doing my own campaign on Wednesdays, and then anything else that I want to do. So it gets tiring. I know that the groups are coming to an end at the end of the month because it's like a 6-month program, and then I'm going to take a little bit of time to breathe and then bring some more kids back in for like another round and everything because I got to sit back and breathe for a second because it's been a lot on top of everything else I got going on with life right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. A good segue before you mentioned writing, and you also mentioned writing initially. And I wanted to ask you, what has it been like to write campaigns, to write worlds? You do write your own stuff. You don't like use like pre-compiled books and stuff like that. And what was it like to write your own stuff and create your own worlds?
I thought it was a blast. I've always loved creative writing and just like immersing myself in my own like world and coming up with my own like, I don't know, creatures and societies and organizations and landmarks and everything. Like I've always just had such a passion for that, and it's a lot of fun. And the one thing I wanted to do when I was a little kid, like 8, 9, 10 years old, like writing these stories in like a little notepad, like a composition book from like middle school, was I wanted to write a book. I wanted to make a D&D or TTRPG book. And that was like my main goal. And here I am now, and I did so much writing over the years that not only did we publish one book, but we published two 5e books over the past couple years. And writing those was one of the hardest things we've ever done, and I've ever done, because I've like for the Cantrip Cast. So there's me, Brandon the DM, and then there's like my company, the Cantrip Cast, and that is like the publishing, streaming end of things. Whereas Brandon the DM is like, that's me, like that's my personality, and like that's my TikTok and like individual stuff. And then there's the group stuff. But the team that wrote like the Cantrip Cast books was, I don't know, compiled of like 3 or 4 people with a few guest writers. But like as for like the main writing and the art, there was 2 main writers, me and my business partner, and then there was our artist, and that was about it. And I did all the editing for the book, all like the communications for overseas for printing, and all that kind of stuff. I wrote half of it.
Wow.
And it was a lot, and we did that twice. We did 2 books in a year and a half, because we're crazy. Yeah.
In a year and a half?
Yeah, so what had happened was we did our first book, and initially it was just going to be like a Kickstarter for like, cool, we just want to have a goal of like $5,000, and we'll just do a few print-on-demand copies for people that are like diehard fans of us that really want this, just so we can say we wrote a book. That's it. Well, instead of getting $5,000, we got like $25,000 or close to $30,000, and I'm like, I guess people really want this book. So we ended up getting them mass produced. So instead of getting just what we needed for the Kickstarter backers, we got enough so we could like sell it and take it to conventions too. And we're like, sweet, we have all these books. I want to go to Gen Con, and I want to have a booth. But the team and I, we all talked, and we're just like, if we're gonna go to Gen Con, we can't just go with one book, can we? No, we gotta go with at least 2, don't we? And we're just like, yeah, we do gotta go with 2. So as the first book was like literally being shipped to us so we could fulfill it, we did the Kickstarter it was a big shot in the dark. So it was like, hey, we're doing this Kickstarter for the second book. I know you guys haven't gotten your first one yet, but I promise you it is coming very shortly. And we ended up raising like $20,000 for that second book as well too. And then the goal of that book though was, however, like, listen, this book, for us to have it by the time that Gen Con comes and for us to have it in hand and sent to Kickstarter backers, is we need to have this book finished before the Kickstarter is even over. So we started the Kickstarter, and we wrote the book in like 45 days and had it done. As soon as we got the Kickstarter money, we sent it to print like that day. And that, I want to say that same week or like shortly after, we got all the first books from our first printing that we did for our first book, sent those to the Kickstarter backers, and then 3 months, they got our second book from us. And then Gen Con was 2 weeks after.
Wow.
It was a lot. I told myself I'm never doing this again. It was a lot of fun. I'm not sure if I want to do another. I'm not sure if I want to do like another book, just because it is a lot of work, especially like when like you're your own publisher, you do self-publishing, and you print in like masses like that to like take to conventions. It's a lot. Like it's very stressful because you're doing so much, and it takes up so much time, and it's so just mentally and physically draining. That's, I don't know. We had a lot of fun doing the 2. I doubled my goal. My goal was to write 1. I ended up writing 2. If we do something in the future that's like a book or ttrpg related, then we do. If not, I'm content with just having the 2 books out and just keeping things basic with doing content and doing streams and doing events and everything. So,
wow, that's a lot of work. It's amazing that you managed to get 2 books published in under a year and a half. I published 1 on Amazon, and it took me 4 months to write it. And then I sent it to an editor because I'm not a native English speaker. So, but yeah, it
was a lot of sleepless nights. A lot. It was, I'm talking like, I don't even know. Like, it, just thinking back to it, like we talk about all the time. We're just like, why did we do that? Why did we do this to ourselves? Because the first book, we took our time with writing. Like, we did the Kickstarter. We had some of it written for like examples and like sample like PDFs for people. And then we took like the remainder of that year to write that book, take the time with the art, and like get it all compiled nice and neat. In December, we sent it to print, and we had it by like March, April, May. Like, I want to say May, of 2021. What year is it? 2023? May of 2022 is when we had them shipped out, I think, to the Kickstarter backers. But then, like, I don't know what we were thinking. We were just like, let's go to Gen Con. But let's go to Gen Con and get a booth. And we're all just like, well, we can't just go with 1 book. We need 2. So it's like, cool. If we're going to do this, we need to do a Kickstarter now. And they're just like, we all talked about it. And we're like, we don't do we have the time to do this? I'm just like, I don't know. Do we? We need to talk about it. Like, well, it took us 7 months to write the first book. Now we have to do another one in 45 days. And I was like, Ian, that's our artist. I'm like, listen, if you can pull this off with the artwork, I will pay you double like what you got, like, or close to whatever I can. Cause like he got rightfully so, our artist got the biggest, paycheck out of all of us out of this, because like we had one artist for both books and he busted his ass, like getting this art done. And it's fantastic. It fits our style. I barely took any kind of pay for the book on, because it was for the Kickstarter. So I didn't touch any of the Kickstarter money. It all went to production, publishing, and everything. But I made sure my artist was taken care of because he did a fantastic job. And then for the second book, we got less funded because it was like such a short amount of time, and plus the second book was a little more niche. So I understand like why not as many people wanted it. It was like an island setting versus like a book of quests. I paid him more for that second book than I did the first book because I knew what it was like. He needed to like get a rush job in and get this stuff done immediately. And he killed it. He got it done in like 45 days, and like so did we, and we threw it together, and we all agreed like, let's never do that again. Ever, please. Oh.
Let's never do that again.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. Kudos to that artist. What's his name again?
His name is Ian. However, on all of his socials, he goes by Artful Thinking. Fantastic. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Cool. I want to backtrack a little bit. We started talking about the Cantrip Cast. Also, we talked about like creating the books, Kickstarter, all that. Let's take a few steps back and talk about that moment where after like playing D&D and like growing up with D&D, what's that moment that you decide like I want to make content?
Oh, it's such a hard question because like I've always had like a thing for making videos ever since I was in like high school. I remember in 10th grade, our English teacher had us do a video project, and it was based on like fantasy archetypes. So like having like a knight and a queen and like a villain and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And it was like the most fun project that everybody had in high school because like we got to get together, make these goofy videos and tell the story. And like that was, I guess, one of the defining moments of just like, oh my God, I want to make goofy, like videos. I want to do this. I want to get into editing and et cetera, et cetera. So when I was in college, just when I started delving into like video editing and stuff, just kind of like messing around, screwing with it and all that kind of stuff, and did some videos for like the bands and stuff I was working with and like my band, and just to, get our stuff up there. But I didn't have like all the time in the world to like really sit down and focus on like, this is how I make content. This is how I do this. Cause I was in college, like it was rough. Like I was working like 50 hours a week while I was in college and also going to school full time, also doing the band thing. Cause again, I was trying to keep myself out of my household. And it was a lot. So I probably wished I could have started doing content sooner. I just never was really able to because I didn't have the means to, or really the time to. So then when I graduated college and I was just working, that's when I started getting more time to do things. So I want to say in 2015, 2016, I think I started like my first YouTube channel, which was like, I forget I don't know what it was called. I just remember I did it for like a month. I was making like terrain for like tabletop games out of like foam and cardboard and stuff. And I didn't really have a good setup. It was bad. It was in like my mom's gross basement with like lamps that I used for like lighting and like nothing. I didn't have the best way to set it up. So the videos looked like shit, and I was not good at talking to a camera because I didn't know what I was doing. So then you tried that, took a break from that. I started working on just like my overall like editing and production skills. Just like learning how to do editing, what it takes to make like a good video or like entertain people. And we started with a podcast in 2018. We started doing a podcast called We Cantrip, a D&D podcast. And I did that with a group of friends of mine. We did that for a couple of years. But what killed that, unfortunately, was COVID. COVID really stuck a dagger into that project because we were recording in person. Then COVID hit and we couldn't get together in person anymore just because the way like the restrictions and regulations and stuff were and everything going on. And also at the same time, two of the cast members on that show both had kids like right when COVID hit. So it made it so hard to even get on and record remotely. And when we did get on and record remotely, it just wasn't the same anymore. Like the episodes and the show just wasn't the same. It just didn't have the same vibe and stuff. So, it just kind of like faded away. We still talk to this day about like finishing it. Like, the last couple episodes, just like going in and just doing like a couple episode arc and just to give people like that ending and everything. But that was like the first time like when I was doing like a project or like content where I was like really happy with the outcome, I guess is a way to put it. Because I was putting time in like the editing and like the clipping and all that kind of stuff and like really making it like sound good. And it wasn't like the best quality audio quality podcast because I was using like just the cheapest gear that I could find and afford at the time, just like on like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. But eventually, I got enough scrap metal together to have some sort of like just like little setup to record it, and it was fun. I had a blast doing it. We didn't get like a lot of listeners. We got a good handful, which was cool. But through that, I started the YouTube channel. Like probably a few months into the podcast, I was like, I should probably start a YouTube channel to coincide with this in case we get like a following or anything, and people can watch like additional content from us. And that's kind of like where the Cantrip Cast came from, because the show is called We Cantrip, a D&D podcast, and then I made the YouTube channel that was called the Cantrip Cast because it was like, yeah, it's the cast of the We Can't, you know what I mean? Like kind of coinciding with that. But like I said, COVID kind of killed the show, which really, really sucked. But I didn't want to quit doing things. I wanted to keep trying to make content. So that's when TikTok started happening. Or like a lot of people started joining TikTok, and next thing you know, I get on there, things start blowing up a little bit. We start streaming. We start getting stuff on YouTube. I do some stuff with players from the Cleveland Browns. I do charity events. I write books, and it just kind of took off from there. So it's been a wild ride that seems like it went from like really, really slow to all of a sudden just fucking took off.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like I noticed, I went to look at the first video that is currently public on the Cantrip Cast YouTube channel. And that's a video.
Oh my God.
Where you explain to new D&D players, like how to start the game, like as a new player or something like that.
That video is so old. That video has Cameron in it. Cameron was one of the players that was on the podcast initially. I love Cameron. I miss him so much, but he was one of the two that ended up having a kid in the middle of the pandemic and stuff. And he just had the time to do anything because like he lived like 30 minutes from me, and like so for us to do anything, he had to like we had to get that drive figured out and everything, and like figure out the time, and he just didn't have the time. God, I miss that kid. I love Cameron. God.
Watching that video, like I was like, okay, so if this is the first video on this channel, there's other content elsewhere. And then I looked at the description, and there was a link to your We Cantrip podcast on iTunes.
Yeah.
So from there I went, and then like I've seen the We Cantrip podcast, 40 episodes. That's impressive.
I think the first season was like 40 episodes, and we were going into like more after that. And it was like we got through an entire first arc of the campaign, which was nice. I'm happy that we at least got through that. But then it was the second arc was what got killed by COVID, so which was sucked. Yeah.
So there was one of the like updates to the podcast was like, so listen, I have 18 episodes that are this quality of audio, but the other rest of the episodes are fucking good.
Yes, yeah. Because at the time, like I started the podcast and like I had just like scrap for gear and equipment, just throwing shit together. But when I started the show a few months in or whatever, a few weeks, however many months it was, that's when my now wife and I, we ended up like got engaged. Like around when I first started the show and everything. And she was really supportive, and she is a registered nurse and makes a lot more money than I do. I, working in mental health, don't make a lot of money, which sucks. But I like the job. But she told me, she's like, hey, we're gonna be married. She's like, I can help you get some stuff for the show if you want me to. And I'm just like, oh my God, I love you. Thank you. So we got a decent upgrade of everything, and it definitely helped out. So Yeah, and I was
That's
definitely more
amazing.
confident I was definitely more confident when we had like better sounding audio and everything too. It made a difference.
Okay, so in terms of like progression, like the Cantrip Cast as a company is something that came, I'm assuming, a little later after you started like your YouTube channel. Is that true?
Yeah, so we started the Cantrip Cast as just like the YouTube channel, and then it wasn't until we decided to start like publishing books that we turned it into like a company, like a legitimate LLC company. Just because like I don't know, it is a little more professional to have like published by the Cantrip Cast LLC versus just the Cantrip Cast. That and like since we do make money off of stuff, it just made sense to have it like for me to make it like a legal entity versus just like like I'm just a dude, you know what I mean? So yeah, didn't really change too much. It's just like I guess that's the benefits of making it like an LLC, because like it's very small. It's an LLC, so it didn't really change much at all. It's just nice to have like, oh yes, like hey, yeah, we're a legitimate business versus just like I'm just like a dude. It didn't change the way we operate anything, except for the fact of like, oh yeah, I have a business bank account for the funds instead of a personal account. Just stuff like that. Easier to keep track of my expenses and all that kind of stuff too. So which is nice.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that tax money needs to come from somewhere.
Yeah. God. People ask me all the time. They're like, "You must make a lot of money online." I'm just like, "No, I don't." I wish I did. There's a reason I work full time still.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of like themes that I see on your YouTube channel and also like on TikTok, I see a lot of humor, and I love that. Your DM therapy series is one of my favorite things to watch ever.
Okay, we'll talk about that here in a minute. We will. Trust me, we will. Okay. I'm ready for that one.
But also like, is humor a big part of like creating content for you? Is that like one of the pillars of content for you?
It definitely is. Yeah, one of the pillars. It definitely is. Because I enjoy laughing and I enjoy making people laugh and I want to make other people laugh because I know it, sometimes going through a lot of shit that I did when I was a kid. And when I say I went through a lot of changes probably over the past 5 years of like being married with my wife that were probably for the better for me because I grew up in a very just toxic, shitty environment that wasn't good for me as a person. So I was kind of like a product of like my environment and my upbringing, which wasn't good. But like during that time, like I was depressed, I was going through a lot of stuff and like just everything going on, like just angry at the world, like didn't give a shit about anything. Sometimes things that would make me feel better were shows I would listen to or like podcasts I listen to. The things that made me laugh and just immerse me for even just like a minute away from something just made me feel so much better, just to give me that laugh, that chuckle that I needed. And that's what I wanted to do for people, is because I know what a little bit of laughter can do for somebody, just to dig them out of that hole that they're in. Even just for a minute, it means the world to somebody. And that's what I wanted to do. That's why I implement a lot of humor into things. And then like the past 5 years, getting away from what I got away from now, married to my wife and everything, like, yeah, I have definitely been able to grow as a person and get away from my past, which has been fantastic and better for me, but also allow me to continue to make people laugh, because now that I'm just like a little healthier as a person, I now can put more effort into like the comedic side of things and the entertainment side of things instead of just being like bitter and angry and etc. So yeah, definitely having that humor and that comedy is 100% like a staple of like our content. However, I will say on the flip side, the one thing I am struggling with personally that I really want to do is I do want to tell a super serious story and campaign, like, or some sort of story. Like I really, really want to do something that's like, oh no, this is like a serious role play thing, because I haven't really had a chance to do that. We've done it a couple times. Like we had a 4-part series called Gamma Rangers. It was a Power Rangers series, but like still that had some humor and stuff to it, because it's just how we naturally just progress to humor in anything that we do, which is fine because people expect that of us and it's fun and they get to laugh and they get to enjoy it with us. But just like naturally, because we've been doing humor for so long, all roads lead to funny, which is fine until some days I'm like, man, I want to show people that I can do things like super seriously and just be like terrifying in like a role play aspect. Like I want to come in as a villain and absolutely just terrify people instead of just like coming in and like making them laugh or making them chuckle. Like I want them to be like to feel the horror of like this villain I create versus just like, oh my god, it's Gooba Goo, the big guy, we gotta fight him. I'm just like, fear me, I am Gooba Goo. You're like, it just, I don't know. I love doing humor, but that's one side of like things I've just been like, man, like I want to work on a project where it's just like, no, hey, like guys, this is serious. Like I'm gonna be serious about this. So, but yeah, regardless, even if I do something like more serious or like some sort of like mini show that is like dead set serious, humor is still going to be a staple for us because if we're laughing, the audience is laughing. If the audience is laughing, we're laughing. We all have a good time.
I think, like to what you said about creating a serious campaign, there is something about maybe expressing some of your experiences in life that weren't so positive into a game is sort of like a different kind of vibe and not necessarily like going into the funny area.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like something that would be very like satisfying to watch. So
and that's what I want to do is like I really want to take something that's like unexpected. You know what I mean? Like people wouldn't expect me to do or write or kind of go into and like kind of do that to show people like, hey, like listen, I can do funny, but I can also do like grimdark. Like let's like I can show you like I got a shitty history here. Like I've got some trauma that I could definitely like, hey, let's sprinkle this on here and see what y'all think. But yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, doing humor is fun. It is, but I also would like to show people, yes, I can do serious too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, Brandon, these were almost all the questions I have for you.
Yeah.
I have one final question.
Okay.
Before I get into it, please tell everyone watching where they can find you and where do you want to lead them after watching or listening to this interview.
Yeah, so you can find us at me and us, my team. You can find blah 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 blah. You can find us at youtube.com/the Cantrip Cast. That is where we do all of our streams and all of our events and like videos and etc. We do focus on tabletop role-playing games and etc. But we do play video games and stuff all the time because we're still at the end of the day just a bunch of friends hanging out, having a good old time. Like we streamed Lethal Company last night for like 4 hours and it was hilarious. So whether you like ttrpgs or just like people making you laugh, that's where you can find us at. We do have a Twitch channel that is twitch.tv/the Cantrip Cast. However, we don't use it much anymore because we kind of like integrated everything over to YouTube. But now that we can multi-stream now, I don't know if the rules are ever changing on Twitch. We might try multi-streaming our stuff on the Twitch now too. So you can find us there. Just follow on there if if that's your main platform in case we do more stuff on there soon. But you can find me, Brandon, at TikTok at Brandon the DM, also known as the Dungeon Master Therapy Guy, which will forever be my bane and my curse. So let me go on. Can I go on a tangent about that real quick?
Yes,
please. I love the fact that it worked. I love the fact I'm known as this guy. I eat it up. I'm not going to lie. I fucking eat it up. I do. Because it's like, I'll go to Gen Con, I'll go to conventions, and people are like, it's the Dungeon Master Therapy Guy. I'm like, it's me. You wanted a photograph? You want a signature? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, yes, this is fucking awesome. This is what I wanted. However, I'm the Dungeon Master Therapy Guy, so it's like expected. There's days where I'm just like, I don't want to make a fucking Dungeon Master Therapy video today because I've made 7 in the past 4 days. So it's very much a love-hate thing. I love the skit. I love the series because like people ask me like, where'd you come up with the idea for the skit? I'm just honest. I'm like I don't know. Fucking going through TikTok and just like looking at like shit that's working for people. Obviously like the back and forth skit format works for a lot of people. Like those are it's very typical skit format. And then like I saw people doing like skit therapy videos where it's just like explaining stupid problems to therapists and like a bunch of people were doing those. And I'm like, wait a minute, I work in mental health and I like D&D. Therapy skits are a good idea. Talking back and forth. Let's do something like that. Like a little D&D, like there's a DM therapist that's helping DMs go through shitty problems. And it just blew up. It blew up. It took off. I'm like, oh, we got something here. It was a blast. It was. But there are some days, like, people will ask me, like, when are you posting your XDM therapy? And I was like, I don't feel like it right now. Like, and then I post one the next day. I do. Because it's like, I like doing it. But it's like, there are days where I'm just like, I need like a week or two off of doing. Like, I haven't done one in probably like 2 weeks. Because I'm just like, nah. Because like, I beat that shit. Like, I beat that dead horse completely and got a new horse out of the shed and beat it again. Like that skit series into the ground, just milking for everything possible. And it still works. People still like the series. People still ask me, which tells me that's awesome. They like the skit. They like the series. They like me. They like what I'm doing. They like the content. But there are days where I'm just like, I don't want to do the skit right now because I've done so many. I have said the term, welcome to Dungeon Master Therapy. How can I help you today? Hundreds upon hundreds of times, more than what you see on video, because you got to think sometimes, like if I'm filming a video and I don't like the way I said, welcome to Dungeon Master Therapy today, how can I help you? I'm like, oh, I slurred that word. Oh, I fucked up. I got to do it again. And I do it again. I probably said, and including conventions. When I go to conventions, people will see me. They'll recognize my voice and they'll see me. They're like, wait a minute, are you? And I'm like, welcome to Dungeon Master Therapy. How can I help you today? And they're just like, it is you. Ah! So yes, I have said the phrase welcome to Dungeon Master Therapy more times than I can even count, and it's both a gift and a curse at the same time. So if you like Dungeon Master Therapy and you're watching or listening to this, thank you so much for the support. Also, I will post more, but Jesus Christ, let me breathe. Oh, okay, we're good. I love you all. Seriously, I thank every single person that has watched that series and that video skit series that has been like, that has helped blow it up to make it is what it is. Because without it, honestly, I probably wouldn't be as known as I am right now. It was a big staple and me like really taking a big step ahead to be able to do some of the things that I'm doing, like working with like the players in the Browns, like Johnny Stanton, Myles Garrett, and like Wyatt Teller, and doing that event in Cleveland. Doing the books, getting enough people to recognize us to go to Gen Con, like all the stuff I've been able to do, a lot of it I cannot say is not because of that series, because a lot of it is, and it's fantastic. There's just some days where I'm just like, whew, gotta breathe. It's fine though, like I understand. But because of it, like there's even more things that I have in the works here soon that I cannot talk about, that I've been dropping like subtle hints towards people with, but that'll be revealed here soon.
That's a good segue to my last question.
Yeah.
The question I ask everyone I interview is a little different.
Okay.
It's kind of a question that like takes you, how do I say this in English? Catches you unprepared.
Okay. Like off guard. Gotcha.
Yeah, off guard.
Yeah.
So the question is, what's in the future for you and the Cantrip Cast?
Here's the problem with that. I know what's in the future, but I can't talk about it.
Okay, that's cool.
At least like one thing that we have coming up. I know that
you can also answer like in an aspirational way. You don't have to like reveal projects.
I have two answers for you. One, the future for us is we're going to continue to tell stories. We're going to continue to play games. We're going to continue to have fun, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. I started this not with the goal of becoming famous, making money, or being the next big like thing. I started this because I have a passion for it, and I told myself that if this ever becomes not fun, and if I hate it, and if I'm not enjoying it anymore, I will stop doing it, because I'd rather make no money and not be miserable. You know what I mean? Things like making money on the side, so like I can take my wife out to dinner or buy some video games or help buy new equipment is nice. It is. However, I have a full-time job for a reason, and I will continue to do this as long as it is fun. And we all agreed, if it stops being fun, we're gonna remember everything we did, and it was all worth it, and we have no regrets. It was a blast, So we're gonna continue to do what we do, tell stories like we always have, hang out, make friends, play games. And as for the other thing that I can't talk about, I will leave you with a subtle hint. Call me Thanos, because I'm coming to collect them all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing.
The trifecta, you could say, I guess is probably a better. Maybe not all. I guess a trifecta. Call me Thanos, I'm coming for the trifecta. Yeah, that's the infinity. I don't know. I got the infinity gauntlet in my hand. I got one gem in it. Now I'm going after the next one.